Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well and having a great day. Now, I previously said that I'd do a run through of the Aerosoft CRJ version 2 for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, a quick overview and tutorial, so here it is for you all. This video will cover the startup of the aircraft from a cold and dark state to being ready for taxi and takeoff. The next videos will then cover taxi and takeoff itself, climb, cruise, descent, and different landing approaches. If you have any questions, please do comment down below and I'll reply to all of you. I hope you do enjoy this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next steps of the tutorial. Enjoy! Right, so now that we are in the cockpit, there's one thing I'd like to go over real quick just before we start. If you see on my screen that we're jumping around a bit within the cockpit, there is in this Aerosoft CRJ version 2 shift and number buttons, and they control the camera views within the cockpit, also externally. So if you want, you can use these shift and number cues that are on the left hand side that I'm showing now, and through 1 through 9 you can use them to jump around the cockpit and use your views wherever you like without having to just sort of click and drag all over the place, which you can lose your position a bit. That's nice and easy. It's nice feature that they've got in there. Anyway, one of these buttons, Shift plus 2, that will take us over to the left hand side here to the EFB. And if we open that up, you just have to click on the front. That opens up into the checklist page to start with. We can go through that in a little bit. Right, for now it's not too important. I would like to start just first of all over in the options page. Bunch of options in here which you can go through and choose and change to your liking. One of which if you use SimBrief or if you have a Navigraph account is very useful. Put in your pilot ID here, and this will connect you to SimBrief. And if you have Navigraph charts, as these are also available under the chart section for Navigraph, you can put them in here. This will also update your nav data, and yeah, like I said, you have access to charts. That's very useful. So if we take that, using the SimBrief, I do have a flight plan loaded in SimBrief, which we used in our previous video from our flight from Milwaukee to Washington DC. If you haven't checked that out, do go back and check that out. That was a very interesting first flight with this aircraft on this channel. Anyway, I'm just going to copy that back in for this tutorial. So if you go import OFP, that will then take that from SimBrief and post it into the flight plan section of the EFB here. Right, now that is in. Normally, if you do this, you can then click send to FMS, and that will send all of this data to the FMS directly. For whatever reason, we found out that this flight plan does not do that, but that's good to know. I can do that manually and show you how that works. In the same way, you can also set the payloads manually from the SimBrief OFP. Now, that is all in. We can start with starting up this aircraft. So we'll start with the electronics. Top left, start at the electrical power. Battery muscle can come on. You'll hear a bunch of beeps as the warnings start filling up. I'll show you them in a second. Right, just want to cut it there as everything stops beeping now. I'll just move this up a bit so that the handlebar doesn't turn up. Here we have the AC electrical power button. This is so far not lit up. So what you want to do is go back to the EFB and go to the aircraft page. And here is where you will be able to control everything externally in the aircraft. So wheel chocks are in place currently. You can also have them removed, and this will deactivate all these buttons. You can no longer press them. So keep them in place, and they're all able to be activated, such that the door and the cargo doors and everything. So top right here, we'll want to set the ground power cart to connected. And then if we look back up at the overhead panel, you'll see that the AC power button is now green and available. So if we click that, you'll hear everything turn on in the background. And if you have one last look down here, you'll see that all the lights have started flashing. And that has started up. Right, we'll continue going around the overhead panel. Boost pumps we don't need on straight away, but we can turn the air conditioning on to start with. This will then kick on once the APU is started. So turn packs left and right on, and the recirculating fan to on. And that will get that sorted. As you start up the aircraft, you also want to turn the now nav and logo lights to on, and the hydraulics. So here you can turn them all on. So you've got 1, 2, 3A and 3B. So set them all to on, or if they're such as 3A doesn't have an auto option, you can also set them all to auto and then 3A to on as well, and that is also perfectly possible. And down here, the emergency lights, we can arm passenger signs as you wish. You can either turn the seatbelts to on or to auto, and no smoking signs to on. In terms of the anti-ice here, there will be errors or warnings down below saying that the windshield and the probes are not on, so you want to set the windshields to low, left and right hand side, and the probes to on, and that will get rid of those warnings down below. Right, everything here so far is finished. We will jump back up here in a second to deal with the landing elevation, but we'll do that once we have a look at the charts. So coming down from the overhead console right down to the bottom here, we're going to first want to turn on the IRS systems. Now if you can just about reach it. If not, you're fine to put the hand parking brake down, turn both to nav and lift that back up. What that will do is start the GPS or GNSS alignment. You can get your GPS position. Now that that is done, we can go to the FMS here, clicking on index and position in it. You first want to type into the scratch pads the name of the airport that you're at. So we are at Milwaukee today, so that's Kilo Mike Kilo Echo. Put that in, and you want to put in also a gate here. Now, again from the last video, it didn't work. I will try it once more. Still doesn't work, but we are at gate 56 here at Milwaukee. It just doesn't recognize it for whatever reason. Not the end of the world. That is fine. From here, you want to go one page further to the next page, and you want to copy the GNSS 1 position. So just click on that left button there, and that will copy it down into the scratch pad. Go back to the previous page and press this button on the right here, and that will paste it in. And as it's been pasted in, you'll see up here on the PFD that just lit up. That means that we have a GPS position. As I said, no flight plan yet, as we have not yet put in our flight plan. That will be the next stage. So flight plan. As we said before, we couldn't paste that in from the OFP, so we'll do this manually. So we're going from Kilo Mike Kilo Echo, the origin, to Ronald Reagan National Airport, which is Kilo Delta Charlie Alpha. There we go. So Washington is in. We did have an alternative of Philly, so you can paste that in too. Nice and easy. Right, now that that is all in, you're going to click execute as it asks for it down here. And we can go to the departures and arrivals page. Now, for our departure today, out of Milwaukee, we are looking for the UCRIS 6 departure, which you just have to click there. We are transitioning via sample, and we are taking it off from 07 right. Everything's in green. You can click execute, and that'll paste it into the flight plan as it seemed up here on the map. It's now showing. Click back to the departures and arrivals index, over to the arrivals, and then we were taking the ILS 1 via vectors and a Freedom 6 arrival, transitioning via Bucko. That is into Washington. Execute that. Back to the departure and arrivals, and that page is now sorted. If we then to go into the legs page, you'll see here that all of the waypoints that we just selected from the departure and arrivals are in here. If we were to go through though, to the next page, we'll see that there is a discontinuity. So here it shows that we only got as far as leaving the departure, that sample, and then there's a big gap, and then we were arriving into the arrival for Washington at Bucko, so that's the start of that. In between, right now there is nothing. I'll just show the routing that we've got right now on the screen so you can see what I'm doing. But what we're going to do is put in the rest of the direct. So from sample, first we're going to Adime, and you can just type these in as you go. From Adime to Ottens, from Ottens to Aniwa, from Aniwa to Jerry, and it goes off to the next page. So again, just press next page and you'll see the discontinuity is still there. And from Jerry direct to Bucko, at which point you can just take Bucko into the scratch pad while clicking on this button and paste it up top, and that gets rid of that discontinuity. You can see if you go to the previous page, Jerry's there, and there's Bucko. That's everything done. Once again, execute that. Everything's in, and you can continue down through the next pages just to make sure that there's nothing else. And you see here, once again, there's a discontinuity between the vectors at the end of the arrival and capturing. So here it's a case of the end of the arrival ends, and then it starts the ILS. These two do not connect, as we will need a vectored approach to join the ILS. Here, once again, you just take capturing and paste it in. Execute, and there, that's everything sorted. Right, that is our flight plan loaded. We'll go through the performance page and takeoff data that we need. So from the FMS, if we go over again to the EFB, and we go to the performance page, now normally from the flight plan you can set all the payload and everything, as it has now decided to turn up, but I'll do this manually just to show you. If you go to the performance page, now from SimBrief itself, if I just once again get up my OFP just to check, it will have all the details in terms of passenger and cargo which you need to input. So for today we have a passenger count of 58, so you'll go through these and click on each one. The one that's in green is the one you can edit, so you just want to delete that, type in 58 and enter. And in terms of cargo today, we have a total cargo of 1,300. Now there's no specific input box to put in 1,300, but you can split them. Let's do sort of 1/3 in the front and 2/3 in the back, if you do something like that. So we can put into the front, let's say 400, and if I press enter, then it will go in. And into the back, then we can do 900. Make sure you delete that first. There we go, and that's 1.3 tons of cargo that we have. Fuel today, we also have 4.3 tons, as it says from the cargo page, or if I look up to the block fuel page, is 4,311 precisely, so we can put that in. So 4,311 kilos of fuel. Now that everything's in, you've got a payload of 6,167, fuel 4,311, and you've got all your zero fuel weights and takeoff data here. What you can do from here is to set the payload in the simulator, and if you watch outside you'll see the entire aircraft jump, or in this case not too much. But that is then set into the simulator, and then you can copy the Perf Init data to the FMS, and what that will do, as we looked at previously, which can be done with the flight plan, if we go down to the FMS and we go to the Perf Init, you'll see that all that takeoff data, cargo, fuel, and everything is now in here. So now we've got 1,300 kilos of fuel, 4,311 kilos, of cargo, 4,311 kilos of fuel, and the zero fuel weight and everything is in there. Only thing we need to put in is the cruise altitude. So today we're flying at a cruise altitude of 39,000 feet, and you'll need to type that in as so, and it will convert it into a flight level. Execute that, and we can go to the VNAV setup. So for the VNAV climb, one thing to take notice of is the transition altitude. Now in America it's normally 18,000, so that is the sort of default number in here, but if you're flying over Europe, different airports will require transition altitude, which you can find on the departure chart. So take notice of that and type in the value here. I'll just type in 18,000 once again just to show you how it's done. Once that's in, again, execute, and if you want to, as soon as this, you can go to the descent and there will be the exact same transition altitude. So once again, I can type in 18,000 because I know that in Washington DC it is the same. You can paste that in and execute. That is now done. So in terms of takeoff data, that is sorted. There is one last thing I will show you on the EFB, which is the takeoff trim. I believe I mentioned in the previous video to take notice of, this 7.0 here. This will not be put in automatically. This is manual. You will need to do that yourself, whereas I show you over here, up here on the trim, it says 7.5. So on your joystick, or if you have a keybind for it, you will need to manually change this to 7.0 for the takeoff. The airplane will not do this for you. It's a very hands-on airplane. This will need to be done by you yourself. Right, now that's done, we can go to starting up the aircraft and getting ready to taxi. Now from here, if we go back up to the top panel, we can start turning on the APU. and getting some more electrical power in this airplane. So what you'll first want to do is from this APU panel right here smack in the middle is click the power fuel button. Once that's clicked, if you have a look at the central ICAS pages here, you'll see the two signs APU LCV open and APU SOV open. And if you were to go externally of the aircraft and zoom in, what that means is that here, right at the back, this door here has opened up and it is ready to take in air into the APU. That's what that means. That means that the APU is ready to be turned on. So back in the aircraft and back up to the top panel, you press the start-stop button until start is illuminated. And if you look back at the ICAS pages here, you'll see this APU box is now shown on the screen, and the RPMs will count up to 100. Once they're at 100, then the electrical power from the APU will be available. We'll just wait until that slowly spools up as the EGT rises and the RPMs rise up to 100. And there we go. Now that is ready. If we look back up, you'll see that the APU is now available. Now we have two green signs here for available, one being the already turned on external power, and one being the APU. Seeing as we no longer need the external power as the APU is on, we can turn that off. Just click it and it will come out. It's still available as the external power unit is still on. But if we were to go back to the EFB, go onto aircraft and disconnect that, if you look up back at the top, it is no longer available. There we have all of the electrical power being generated on board, no longer externally, and now we are ready for a taxi. Right, a few more things to go through, such as all of these yellow buttons down here. Now there are some things which we can wait for, such as the engine oil pressure until we turn on the engines, but there's some things such as yaw dampers and MAC trim and stab trim which can be sorted out right now. So if we go down to the bottom panel, we had warnings for stab trim and MAC trim. So what we want to do is go channel 1, channel 2, make sure they're depressed in. Sometimes you click them and they don't, but make sure they're depressed in. And the MAC trim. There we go, that's sorted. And up here you have the yaw damper 1, give that a click, yaw damper 2, give that a click. And if we go back here, you'll see that all of those yellow warnings have now disappeared. One last thing that we can do while we are also down here is turn this ATC select to the left to 1, and you'll see up here that just turned our squawk box here from standby to active. So when we want to turn that on, we will just go from standby to active, and we can turn our radios on from standby to on as well. Down here, for now this is sorted. Once we come back and get rolling, we will turn that on to ATC 1 and set our squawk when we get that from the tower or controller. And one last thing before we push back, which is completely up to your own preference. If we have a look at the FMS, and as it's showing this screen and this screen at the same time, you can see it pretty well. If we go to MFD Menu, there are a bunch of menus here, or options here rather, in the menu, which you can decide what you actually want to be shown on here. Now going right and left, we'll change the display menu in a bit further into that, and the side here, this left and right, will change the captain's side on the left and then the first officer's side on the right. The way I like to have it is if you click this twice, that then shows you your VNav data up above the arc here, the nav arc. And if you want, you can have airports, you can also turn that off, you can have intercepts, low and high nav aids. There you go, as they load in, you can see them there. That's normally quite nice to have if you get directed by ATC to a nav aid. You can also have your ETA shown at every intercept, as well as MBDs when they are available. Anyway, the way I like to have it is something like that. Oftentimes I might turn the ETA on if that is relevant, but for right now this is enough. You can also switch to the right and do the same. Turn it to VNav and turn off the airports, and if I just pan up here, have a little look over, you can now see the VNav data and no airports being shown. Right, that is that. That is everything with the aircraft so far set up, and we shall continue on and get ready to taxi. Right, so now that we are sat here and ready for pushback, I do have GSX installed, so I'll use them for the pushback, but this is also possible with the base Asobo or Microsoft pushback feature through ATC, but simply I will get us set and ready for pushback, and while we are being pushed back I will go through a few more things. Mainly, and one very useful button, which I didn't realise till recently, the yoke is constantly in the way. If you are to press this black sticker here, that drops out of the way and that gives you access to all the buttons on the side here.
Ready for pushback.
Right, I guess we're ready for pushback. And if I look at the EFB here, one thing you may have seen on the performance page is all of these takeoff speeds on the right. Now these are taken from the flight plan, these are taken from the aircraft that is inputted, and if you select your flap settings, most likely 8, and then your runway condition, for us dry, it will load in your V1.
Departure checks completed. Bypass pin inserted.
Like I said, your V1, your rotate, and your V2 speeds. You can simply set all, and then from there, you will see that all of these have been inputted into your primary flight display. One thing you can also do is down the bottom here, switch this button from target to V speed, and that will give you one more down here.
Locking gear.
And I like to then select it so it shows the V2 speed, so the speed that you should be reaching after takeoff. Also, while we're here, we can set our barometric pressure, which is also available from the EFB. And we'll be going to the right, I believe.
Release parking brakes, please.
Once they ask, you can release the parking brakes.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start
and
at
we'll
will.
start our engines in a second, but we have our METAR here for Milwaukee, so we are looking at 2928 for the barometric. So we'll set that to 2978, as I said that wrong. 2978. There we go, now we have our barometric pressure. Right, they have asked us to turn on the engines, so we shall, up here, quite simply, hold the left engine till it starts. And then we will look down here and wait for this N2 value to reach 20. Once that reaches 20, we can turn on the engine. In the meantime, as I have forgotten, and I should have said, turn the beacon on. There we go. That has now reached 20. Go down to the throttle panel, you'll click the red locking button and pull up the throttle. That will drop back down, and you can drop it back down to idle position. If you look at it from the side here, you'll see that it's now in the idle position and not in shut-off. And the engine starts button is still on. So we'll wait for that to slowly spool up the N2. Once that is stable and the start, there we go. That little beep tells you that it is ready. You can go back up to the top and start the right engine. Same again. So right engine start is on once that reaches 70. Oh, sorry, once that reaches 20.
Set parking brakes.
Set the parking brakes for them.
Waiting your confirmation for a good engine start.
And that will turn up every second until I tell them. So, right, 20. Once again, raise it above to idle, drop it back down. And that will continue going on. I will just quickly tell GSX that we have a good engine start for now, so they stop
Cockpit to ground.
harassing
We have
me.
a good engine start. You can disconnect.
There we go. And that will also slowly go up until the N2 is stable. There we go, as that's gone up, you've seen some of those warning lights disappear.
Unlocking gear.
And the hydraulics should slowly come into life as well. Now that that is all on, we no longer need the ACU, sorry, the APU, so we can come back up, disconnect that, and once again press the power and fuel button once.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed. Left is clear, right is clear.
There we go. That is all now turned on. Engines are turned on. They are disconnecting us from the pushback. Once they are all clear, we can turn on some lights and taxi and get underway. Right, so they have given us clearance to taxi. If you want to do one last check of the overhead panel, make sure that everything is on. There's no warning lights. So we want the boost pumps to be on, hydraulics, lights, everything turned on. You can have the wing inspection lights on or off as you wish. And as we are ready to taxi, we can turn our taxi lights to on. Everything up here is looking good, and if we look down at the ICAS panel, we're not seeing any warning lights anymore, so that is all good. And we are ready to taxi. So here we are ready to taxi at Milwaukee as we start our flight once again over to Washington. If you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe as you catch the next taxi and takeoff tutorial. Once again, if you liked it, do feel free to like, comment down below if there's any other questions that you have related to the startup of the Aerosoft CRJ. If you want any more information, once again, yeah, do comment down below and let me know. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you do enjoyed this video, please do let me know about it. Thank you very much, everybody, and I'll catch you in the next one.